I am here this evening for James with James Sharpe of Oshiro Model Terrain. Why you ask? Well, James is a friend of ours, and he might also be selling Wiley Games stuff on his web store. But mostly, we're having James on today because of the fantastic terrain that he does, and we've talked about terrain on this show, and this guy knows how to get it done. So good morning, James.
Good morning, Jay. How the devil are you?
Oh, I'm fantastic. Waiting for
Good.
my breakfast cocktail. We're pre-taping this, of course, because of the time difference. So uh we're gonna we're gonna have a fun time. Although Steve isn't here because Steve isn't even out of bed yet. So anyway,
That's not our Steve, is it, over here in England?
what?
That's not our Steve in England, is it?
No,
No, that's all
no.
right.
My Steve that does the show with me, that does all the fantastic Star Wars stuff. So, which we'll talk about here in a moment.
Good.
Because not only is James a great terrain builder, but he's also a Star Wars fanatic, much like myself. So
Well,
we may or may not be talking about Star Wars at some point.
well,
But
I do what we do.
yes, so I've got some nice slides up here of James's work. So if you're not familiar with it, you can check it out. I'm also going to be putting down here at the bottom the oh, I thought I had a banner already.
Is that when
I'll
you do this?
Mm-hmm. When I do
Okay.
this. No, I was going to add your website, which is www.oshiro model terrain, and it's .co, right? Slash
Dot
UK.
.uk.
I'm sorry.
.co.uk.
Yeah. Oh, it is dot. I thought it was slash for some reason.
No, no, no.
There we go.
.co.uk.
We are going to.
A quick word. So that website is the old one that I had.
But will
Um,
it redirect to you?
Uh, yeah. It's still going. I just haven't altered it because I've been concentrating on the web shop. There is a link on there to go to the web shop.
To go to the web shop, which we're gonna hear. So correct me if I'm wrong, but not only do you have a web shop, but you also do commission work.
I do.
And so as I'm gonna kind of go through this, but tell me how Oshiro Model Terrain got started.
Well, I've always had an interest in Japan, and when I was at school, I actually got to see the film Red Sun, the one with Toshiro Mifune. He comes over to the States,
Yep.
dies in the end, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But it was the juxtaposition that caught my eye because I always like cowboy films because my
Yeah.
dad
Yeah.
liked
So
cowboy films.
for those who don't know, it's a samurai who comes to the old west, basically.
Yeah, on a
Yeah.
mission, and it was not a shock per se, but it was just, oh, this is different. Wonder if there's
Yeah.
anything else like this. And then I think there was a film season on one of the British channels over here a few weeks later, and they showed the Seven Samurai, and that was a real eye opener. So I
Yeah.
just wanted to find out more
I'm
about it.
in
And
now. Yeah.
yeah, and it's just grown from there. Really, I've always liked making things, and it just seemed a natural progression. Really.
So, but you went to school for model making, correct or not? I can't
Um,
remember.
I went to university to get a model making degree. Hands up, I actually failed, but the reason I failed is because I already had a job. Um, because in the second year, you get sent out for work experience,
Yeah.
and I did quite well, and they offered me a job there and then. So I did that part time, and I sort of went back to university part time as well. Because I didn't finish the modules, I didn't pass. It
Yeah.
didn't matter because I had the job, and that's what I
Yeah.
wanted to learn about.
Yeah. The job you wanted anyway. So what's the
Yeah,
point?
yeah,
Yep. Yep.
yeah. Not that this had anything to do with me failing university. Not at all.
Not at all. No. I almost did the same thing. I started an internship my last semester at school, and I knew I had a job waiting for me at the end of it. So I could have just gone, but
Yeah.
unlike you, I finished it. But I had a lot more long. I had a lot less. I had a lot less to do. So So you've got the model making background, and then where did the wargaming come in from?
Um, well, that again has always been an interest. We used to role play at school, and then there was a small wargaming club that I went to, and so that's always been in the background. Being a model maker, and it was specifically architectural model making. I
Mhm.
was able to combine the two to be able to create sort of terrain that I would like to see on the table,
Yeah,
and
and
from there,
everyone immediately wanted you in their game club. Make us
um, yeah, after a fashion, yeah, yeah. I wasn't in demand, but I did make stuff for the club. Um, but I think a lot of clubs, most of the people play to play the game, which is fine, of course.
Yeah,
But when you're with a small group of friends, then you can become a bit more detailed
yeah,
with the terrain.
definitely. And to me, I've talked about it on the show previously. Uh, it's perfectly fine to be the people who just want to play.
Oh, of course,
For
yeah,
me
yeah,
and for my group, it's terrain is just as important to me as the miniatures and the game, and of course the camaraderie. Because
yeah,
otherwise, just play a board game is far, or
yeah,
what's the point of having the of being in a hobby that requires you to have terrain and stuff. And it's a big. I understand it's either a big financial or a big time uh, crunch to have those models on the train. But once they're built, and you've got these cool, you know,
yeah.
uh, you've got
Yes,
these cool things to play with, and you can start out with just you know trees and hills, which you'll always use, and then
yeah,
um, I know, especially with you and your love of all things Japanese, that um, doing the research into making the thing right, and whether it be just a rice barrel for uh, medieval Japan, or something, getting an arch right and all that kind of stuff.
yeah.
Doing the research can be just half the fun.
It
So
can be, yeah. It's very time consuming if you let it be, especially given the prevalence of images and information on the internet now.
yes, back in the
Because
day when you had
originally,
to go to the actual library to look something up.
yeah, well, originally, because I've been going to Japan for nearly 20 odd years now, and originally I would go to the bookshops and get the books with the good pictures in.
Hmm.
Um, and I've got quite a collection. Don't know if you can see some of them
Yes,
behind me,
here
maybe
we'll go back to here.
some of them. Yeah.
We'll go
Um,
back to the thing so we can
but
center.
obviously, with lots of information being on the internet, a lot of the books they're not redundant because I still like to get a book and open it out and have it on the page next to
Hmm.
me when I'm working. But you can still do it, on the computer now.
Yeah. No, I mean, if anything, the internet has opened up lots of possibilities now for us war gamers to uh,
Yeah,
research everything. So
yeah,
I'm gonna put the pics up, and maybe we can talk a little bit as we go through, because despite the despite the prevalence of printing and 3D printing and stuff, there's a there is a magic to the scratch built uh, the terrain, and you do commissions. So
yeah,
I know you've got, hey, make me LaHaye Saint from Waterloo. I don't
yeah.
know how many times you've built that sucker, but anyway,
Um, just the once,
just once.
just once. Yeah,
So you do a variety of different historical and sci-fi, which we'll cover too.
yeah.
Um, So, like for instance, this one, I'm going with Belgian or Dutch, possibly.
Yeah, it's a Dutch town hall. The actual building's still in existence, and the client wanted it for, I think it was 17th century, also including French Revolutionary Wars, and it could be used for World War One, World War Two if necessary. So most of that is actually laser cut, but there was quite a bit of time spent masking the windows, painting in the little details, making the finials.
Yeah.
So
So
even
you
though it's sorry, go on.
so you have a laser cutter, and then you
I
build
do.
it.
Yeah.
build it on the computer, and then laser it out, and then assemble everything, and
Yeah, yeah,
add all the fine details, and paint it, and weather it, and all that kind of
yeah.
stuff.
So
So
even though most of that's done on the laser, there's still quite a bit of handwork involved in it. Sticking pieces together. The windows are done separately and then stuck
mhm.
in. Same with the shutters on the lower half. Obviously, the statue, the pedestal was made. The finials on top were made by hand as well. So it's a mixture of elements.
Yeah. The other part of it too is, so you get to commission like this. What is your process for then making said thing? So this guy said, I want the Dutch town hall from X city. So then how do you start?
Um, it depends from client to client. Some of them will have a specific building that they want in mind, and they'll send pictures. They'll also
That's
send a
helpful.
base size. Hmm?
That's helpful.
Oh yeah. um, they'll also have a size in mind, but sometimes it's just, can I have a generic German townhouse?
Mm,
Um, so I'll go through previous work, some of the images, reference images that I've got, send them over. If they say yes, then I'll go ahead. If they say no, then we'll try something else.
cool.
And then once once the design has been decided, then it's just a case of making it. I know that sounds very
Yeah.
flippant, simple, but that's basically how it is.
Yeah. So for something like this medieval church,
Yeah.
I'm going with that's what it is.
Yes.
Um, Same sort of process. You're going to go and build the pieces, and then laser them out, fit them together, finish your edges. Then it's about paint and applying all the weathering and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah. The roof lifts off with that one.
Sure.
The roof, I actually made it by hand. I could have done it on the computer, but I still like to use my hands when making things.
Yeah. So
So although
the roof tiles are made out of, they're not individual. You cut them into strips,
I could, yeah, they're
and they're
for sale in the web shop. Yeah, so I used
ooh,
those, stripped them down, but the actual roof panels themselves were cut to size, loose fit a few times, and then the tiles were stuck on.
sweet. I like it.
Yeah,
And little I'm going with temple maybe, or a
yeah,
small.
it's a little roadside shrine that you'd find in rural Japan, here, there, and everywhere, really. And that's actually proved quite popular. That one.
Just that
I
one.
think yeah, I've done 7 of those
Okay.
as commissions,
So
as you see there, with the trees and all the bits.
so having to build the same thing 7 times, does it get old?
Um, it does, but because I can change the layout somewhat, I'll
Yeah,
alter
you
the
can mix it up
trees,
a
add
little bit.
bits, take bits away. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not too bad.
Yeah, I grabbed a couple of your Japanese villages images just because um, later on we talk about some of the stuff that's in your web shop, some of the
Mm.
buildings and stuff that you've put together. Um, I love this one just because I like the big boats in the island. I'm going with cork on that one, or is that
No, the island is blue foam carved up
blue
with a
foam?
knife. Yeah,
Excellent.
just have a chunk of it.
And is this another commission one?
It
The
is. It's in Australia at the moment. Um, and
man,
again, it's mainly laser cut. The building, the main building. The smaller building was done by hand. So with that one, I don't know if you're able to zoom in, but the brickwork is just
mm.
sort of plastic brick sheeting. But I stuck all the timber work on first, and then cut the plastic brick panels
Oh, and
out,
stuck it in individually.
stuck it in. Yeah, just
Wow.
because it gives it more of a slightly ramshackle appearance.
See if I can get it. Nope, that doesn't do it. Sorry,
No,
I was trying to get it to where we could zoom in, but
yeah,
I really
no,
don't
it's
have
all
that capability. So,
yeah.
yeah, that's and then when you do something like this, is it all one piece, or do the buildings come separate from the
Usually, it's all one piece, because I mean, a lot of the commission work I do is German buildings. That's
Mhm.
what seems to have been most
Oh,
popular.
okay.
And the the gamers use the baseboard as so like the village boundary, if you will, so they can have one or two
Yeah,
battalions in there, and
gotcha.
it's just to look nice rather than be an accurate representation of a village.
Sure. I'm just gonna. I'm showing some more of the lovely buildings, and then you also do vehicles, and
VSF, yeah, I've got a
we'll
little
talk
splash.
about Victorian sci-fi here in a moment, uh, but I just wanted to show people that you do, scratch built vehicles and stuff.
That's resin in the catalogue. That's
Mm.
available for purchase.
But so when you do resin, though, you are still building it from scratch,
Most of the time, yes, yeah.
and then making a cast of it.
Yeah. So, for example, on that one, the wheels were 3D printed first, and then I've cast those. But everything else has been made by hand. So the funnel was made by hand, the cab, the boiler, the carriage, the ladders. It's all been done by hand,
And when
mainly
you,
because I enjoy it.
yeah, well, I mean that's the part of it. I know that there's people who um, like playing games that hate painting miniatures, that kind of
Mm.
thing. And to me, that's like one of my favorite things is the painting the miniatures too. And then it's the game that lets me put them out on the table. That's
Yeah.
the other part of the fun. Um, when you do your when you're building your 3D printed stuff, what programs are you mostly using?
Just Rhino, pretty much.
And I can't remember if that one's free or not.
No, but I bought a copy years and years and years ago.
Sure. You could probably do something similar in like Tinkercad or one of those other free
Yeah,
programs.
there's
Maybe
Tinkercad, there's SketchUp. You should be able to
SketchUp.
do most things with those. Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, Rhino was what I used when I was working
Yeah,
as a model maker.
it's what you use when what you're familiar with. So I get
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
And then, of course, we're getting into some sci-fi slash Star Warsy stuff. So one of my favorite things is this is a resin piece that you've made, correct?
yeah, yeah,
It's the weathering, and which is one of the things that I love about Star Wars
yeah,
is is the lived-in future of it. It was
yeah.
kind of the first sci-fi movie that made stuff look like, oh, that's actually
Looks real. Yeah,
it looks real because it's got rust and it's got, dents and it's got paint missing and stuff like
yeah.
that. And so, and I've got one of these buttes. It has been used many times on the table to run down the middle of the road. It's just a little transport. Can I use this?
Yep.
Yes, please do. And we've got some nice little small fortresses and stuff. This could obviously be used as a Mandalorian kind of
Yeah,
little
yeah.
outpost.
Or you can paint them a beigey color and have them on a desert planet. That's always an option as
Oh,
well.
exactly. The wonders. So I put this one in here just because not only did you build all the terrain
Yeah,
for London, um, but we've played a few games on this one remotely and also in. Why did he's in there? We've also played it in the flesh at Salute. So
yeah.
a couple of years back, and when Salute was still happening,
Still
we did
there.
our
Yeah,
Tales of Horror game. Um, when you're thinking about a large table like this one, where you've got pieces of the city, um, are you planning the pieces one by one because it's things you want to build, or is it I've drawn up what the whole table is going to look like? I'm trying to see if I grab some
ooh,
hold on,
yeah.
try to
Interesting question. It sometimes depends on what type of game. So, for example, the Japanese games that I put on, um, they are partly product display, um, and partly trying to show the proper layout of how a Japanese castle town would be. So
sure.
that's how that sort of game is designed. London, I could really go down a large rabbit hole and try and get all the street layout correct to how it would have been, but
Yes.
it's an impossible task. So it's just a case of making a few buildings together on a pavement plate that can be placed somewhere on the table to give different layouts each time.
Mhm.
The Salute game that you mentioned that actually had the River Thames on it, and a Thames like London Bridge. But that was the only key feature that I wanted on that table. Everything else was just from the collection or a few specially built buildings on pavement plates, just plonked down to
Yeah.
recreate London.
Yeah, because when I'd worked with you a lot when I was doing my own version, my sadder version of it, and you were the one that
Yeah,
was like, "Don't mess with cobblestones." It was all filth and street. So if there was cobblestones
yeah,
underneath a foot of grime, so just make it dirt. Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
the
Interestingly, if you got time for a slight diversion, some of the roads in London during the Victorian period were actually made from wooden cobbles, and it was a very, very dense hardwood from Australia, imported at
oh
great cost, cut into hexagons, laid in the streets. The problem was all the horse urine and the horse poop, when it gets wet,
yeah.
is very, very slippery. And because this wood is incredibly hard, didn't have any traction on it. So they had a serious problem with horses breaking their legs because they were slipping on their own muck
Wow.
on these wooden cobbles. So they had to bring them all out and put stone ones in
Wow.
to create a bit more traction.
Oh, all made by Australian, probably penal labor. So yeah.
Quite possibly, yes, but no comment on.
Yeah.
But that's
Well,
what I mean. That's the sort of rabbit hole you can go into. Because I
sure.
just had a quick look, what sort of road surface should I do? And then you start to research it, go into historical documents, that sort of thing. And you can be there for a long, long time just reading.
Yeah. I was showing a slide of just like, for instance, doing the research to get the barrels right. Um, and I'm gonna show some of the other buildings you've done, but you also do little bits in your
Yep,
store, which is great.
yep,
Um, to show that you can add to your existing models.
yep,
Um,
yep,
I remember this baby. And little things like this that you can add, and again,
yeah. All right,
whether
a lot of what's in the web shop is what I would personally like to have on the table, if that makes sense.
yeah, and
Um,
it's getting, but again, even then, I think because it looks so good for Star Wars, you did a little research. You can watch Star Wars couple hundred times, and get your
oh,
and you also do like this is 6 millimeter
it is,
pieces
yes, yeah,
too. Yeah. You do little accessories,
yep,
sort of for your
yep,
for in there. So this is just to show how massive a Shiro model terrain. Oh, look, there's some fistful lead stuff in there. How big your catalog is. So you can
yeah. I think there's,
talk about going down the rabbit hole. There's just tons and tons of great stuff on the website.
yeah,
So
I
that
think
your
there's
stuff
about
can look as
500 products on there now. I think
yeah. I mean, I was
something
I was
like
just
that.
taking screenshots of everything. So, um, and I will say that the pieces that I've got from you are the resin is really nice. It's nice and clean
Thank
and
you.
not bubbly. So you're doing the Lord's work. Um, but I was also wanted to add because I this is we both love Victorian sci-fi, so I picked some of the pieces from
Mm,
your other sort of passion besides Japan, Victorian sci-fi, and specifically Victorian sci-fi on Mars. So you also have like
yeah,
a little side
yeah,
project, Red Planet Miniatures, which you also sell on your website, which is some of your stuff. But these are
yeah.
all
It hasn't had any love for a long time, unfortunately. We need to get back into it.
so we've talked about some of the other stuff, but your other great love, like me, is for Victorian sci-fi, specifically Victorian sci-fi on Mars.
Yep,
You've got Red Planet Miniatures, which you sell some of those minis on your website,
yeah,
and we were talking about how it doesn't get as much love as you like, but that's what happens sometimes. You have a passion project that no one else
yeah.
seems to be passionate about. Um, but we're gonna do a supplement for our new Galactic Heroes. It's going to be specifically for Victorian sci-fi, and we're going to
Huzzah!
try to feature as much as your stuff as we can in there, and hopefully get some more love coming your way,
Yeah,
especially
that would be good.
some of these lovely scratch built flying vessels and because we'll have rules for all that kind of stuff. So these are all
Excellent.
built by hand. No MDF here, baby. This is all.
No MDF. No, just yeah. Most of these are actually, apart from the hulls, most of them are made out of card.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, yeah.
Well, it makes them lighter,
But
so they're not so heavy on the flying.
yeah. So the hulls are carved out of blue foam. Then the upper superstructure, most of it's card.
So,
Um,
have you ever thought about making kits for these?
Phew,
I know you
yes,
make
I
like the
have.
turrets and stuff, or turrets and stuff.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I have, but it's got to be a toss up between what looks decent, as in not a blocky burnt wood,
Hmm.
whatever, and what's actually practical
Yeah,
for
because like
commercial
the yeah,
purposes.
like the whole would be a solid piece, and that would be a lot of resin.
Yeah, I mean, there is an option to print it and sell it as a printed part, but again, there's too many variables involved with that to make it, viable along with everything else that I do.
But you would do one of these as a commission,
Mm,
possibly.
certainly would, yes. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
So that there's that option too. So,
yeah.
and of course, this lovely flagship games piece. I don't know if you can still get them, but you know,
No, I don't think you can anymore. No.
yeah, yeah. I think Thomas sold the all the molds to another company, and I think they just ran enough till their molds blow out, and then they just stopped making them. So I think
Yeah.
there's still some pieces here. I've got this one too. But so you can't have Victorian sci-fi without Nemo. So
Mm.
I wanted to put in some pictures of your. I pulled these from your one of your mini blogs. The
It's only two.
but I wanted to show some of the lovely games you've put on the Red Planet. So
Yeah, yeah.
get a nice little shot of the hill Martian settlements in there. Got some.
Yeah, I honestly don't know where the Martian thing came from. I mean, War of the Worlds is one of my favorite books, but that's not on Mars. The terrain is limited because obviously it's red and you can't use it
Yeah,
for
yeah,
terrestrial games or anything like that. So, I
yeah.
mean, I've actually started painting some of my old Rogue Trader 40k figures with red bases, so I get to use some of the rocks and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, I ran into the
Yeah,
same thing. I wanted to do Mars too because I'm a big fan of like Space 1889 and War of the
mm,
Worlds and all that. And when it came down to the basing, I'm like, all right, I got to commit to the red orange because I guess I could use these again in like certain parts of Africa. The American South has some pretty red,
yeah,
has some pretty
yeah,
red terrain. Southwest, but once I do this, I'm in, baby. And these Brits they're only going to be able to use from art, which is fine. I I used some Northwest Frontier guys anyway, so it's not like I was going to use them for that. So
yeah,
the lovely train overpass that I got to see in the flesh was pretty awesome. And again, we've got even though it's Mars, we've got that passion for the Japanese stuff. So you've got a lovely
yeah,
Japanese force for Mars.
yeah. I think it's probably because most of the main powers at the time are already done: British, French,
Yeah,
Prussian, German, that sort of thing.
yeah.
Not many people were doing Japanese, so it just seemed like a natural thing to do, really.
Well, and you can double for Boxer Rebellion and all
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Well, these this so here's a shot of your version of the Martians that you've come up
Sky
with
Marshal.
that you sell. So they're different from everybody else's. So they've got the sort of backward dog leg and more of a I don't want to say insect like face because they're not.
Mm.
More of
It's almost
a
like a Grey's alien, but not quite.
yeah, yeah, a little bit like that. So and then you've
Yeah.
got your Japanese town complete with the Sapporo beer factory on Mars because that's I mean the Germans whenever they took over some place one of the first thing they did was build a brewery. That's how we have
Yeah,
Tsingtao beer and some of the other ones like
yeah,
in Africa. So that they built those breweries, and they're still around. So,
Yeah.
um, and then of course some scratch built native terrain. The the detail in here is great with the food and all that, and some monoliths. Another shot of the Martians themselves in their unique armor. Nice big battle scene. I wanted to get some pictures of Victorian London. I don't know if I got these in here again. I might have them out of order, but mixing it up with some samurais, some close combat. Another great shot of the overpass. These are all on your Red Planet blog, aren't they? Can't remember. I think that's where I pulled them from.
Yeah,
Okay,
very
so
much
yeah,
so. And that needs updating.
um, but yeah, no, yeah, that most of those I pulled from like your Red Planet blog, and then
Yeah,
so I knew I had some pictures in here of the sort of Limehouse look. So there's the Thames and the that we were talking about, and the not London Bridge,
yeah,
complete with the so it's nice about this, like you said, you can move stuff around and still have, you know, different
yeah.
layouts
Trying to
and
keep
everything.
it flexible. Yeah,
Yeah, we had a nice play by email game, or not play by text game. Let's just
mm,
say werewolves
yes,
versus vampires. There's one of the vampires from the lovely Highgate Miniatures. We'll have Nick on here sometime. Some of my favorite vampires and vampire hunters that are out there. So um, that's a lot with the picks. Again, you can go to James's game or go to his web store and check out all the little pieces he has there. And then he occasionally posts on the Wiley Games site, and along with some of the other ones. So his stuff is always out there. But now we're done talking about that stuff. We could talk about Star Wars. So what's your thoughts on Boba Fett?
I'm quite liking it actually. Um, but not every star has to be a badass. I quite like the route that they're taking with him.
Yeah, I
He's
mean
just a
he's
crime lord.
people. Yeah, and he says, "I'm tired of working for these a holes, and I
Yeah,
want to be self-employed now. So I'm gonna be a crime lord." So they've taken that.
yeah,
You already have a bounty hunter story, so why recreate the wheel and just have
yeah,
instead of having two bounty hunter shows. The other part that people have been upset about is the pace and the background stuff. And I always try to point out to him is like, here's a guy that had 6 minutes of total screen time in the original trilogy. He had like two lines. So everything that we think is all stuff that we've made up in our head about him, and not stuff that uh, actually happened. And yeah, I know there's comic books and there's other stories, the classic Christmas special, you know, that you can base your ideas of who Boba Fett is. So
the
the
holiday
fact that
special.
the
Oh,
holiday special, hey, there was a little bit with Boba Fett in there, so you gotta count
that
it
was
as
his first
his.
appearance. Yeah,
Yeah. So that's canon. So we don't really know anything. So anybody that's just like got this
no,
idea of who he is, and again, oh, he looks, fat and he doesn't ever fight. I was like, no, because the crime lord doesn't do the fighting. He has his minions do the fighting. He doesn't
yeah.
do crap. You know, Tony Soprano
He's
rarely
spent
got in
God knows how
fights.
long in
Yeah,
the belly of a monster. He's going to want to fight.
yeah, and they said he was out with the Sand People for years. It wasn't like you know, he was because you've got that time between Return of the Jedi and the current timeline. So he's been out there in the wastelands for this entire time,
5 years,
basically.
I think.
Yeah. So there's that part of it too. You're out of practice.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
again, you're a crime lord. The crime lord doesn't do the fighting. He has his minions to do the fighting, kind
yeah,
of thing. It was weird the last episode. We're gonna go totally spoilers here. He's not even in. And there
yeah,
was you got a little insurge there of Mando again, and see what he's up to, which okay, that's cool. We needed to have what's he up to, but it was just kind of strange to just have it only the last 5 minutes actually have anything to do with the book of Boba Fett. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I
and
still enjoyed it though. I think the cinematography, the not the set pieces, but the scenery, the scenes, brilliant for world building. Absolutely
yeah.
fantastic. All the details that they're cramming in now.
Well, and yeah, and bringing in all the stuff like you got to see Luke's friends that were thrown in. Were thrown in the bar fight in one of the episodes that makes them canon. They were
Yeah,
the people that he was. The girl was supposedly Luke Skywalker's like who had he had a crush on back in the day, and
is it
then
off
they
on
do little.
off?
Yeah, they do little details like the last episode when they're building Mando's ship. He's like holding this piece for the ship that is the same piece that they
Yeah,
use to brace the
yeah,
trash compactor in the New Hope
yeah.
kind of
It's
a deal.
brilliant.
So it's
Yeah,
those little things, and they've brought in pieces from the video games, like the little droid that's in it, and some
yeah,
of the things about Boba that I didn't like. Some of the Robert Rodriguez directed ones were I felt that the cyborg kids and the street gang took it a little bit. The look of it took it too much out of the sort of established Star Wars look. I understand where it came
yeah,
from. He was bringing in some of the
yeah,
colorful vehicles and stuff from Chicano culture in LA and his background and all that kind of stuff. But it just and then the weird giant cybernetic stuff, it's like Luke's got cybernetics, but you don't know, you know. That he's got them. And
yeah,
so we've established that yes, there are like prosthetics and cybernetics and souped up pieces, but they don't they they don't look like what they look like in Boba
yeah,
Fett. So I thought that was
yeah,
odd, and their vehicles is like if you're okay, you're supposed to be these lowly street rats. Your hot rods are going to be made out of old Imperial speeder bikes and stuff like that you found at the junkyard, not these weird things that don't look like anything else that's kind of been established. Just I felt like the look of it was just it kind of took me out of it for a minute, but it was a small thing
yeah. A little bit. Yeah,
in the
yeah. I agree with you
overall
on that, but I
scheme of
can
things.
accept it because it's there.
Well, somebody
If that makes
signed
sense.
off on it.
Yeah,
Somebody, Favreau and Filoni had to say, yeah, okay, we're putting that in there. So it's not like he did it himself. It wasn't done in a vacuum. So anyway, but uh, what are your plans going ahead now? We've talked about Star Wars. What's kind of the stuff that you're getting ready to do?
personal or business.
What?
Yes. Personal or business.
Oh, either one. Something. I mean, we're talking about
Either
war
one, right?
games, but you can have
Yeah.
personal.
All right. Okay. Okay. I'll do both. So for the catalogue, there's a lot of 6mm stuff coming out soon to follow on with existing ranges, the other scales. I'm going to be redoing all the 28mm buildings with interiors, but it's a big job to
Ooh,
do that. So they'll
yeah.
come out a bit at a time, one or two, maybe three at a time. That's for this year. I've got the 50mm castle and navy for the Japanese to finish off. They'll be coming out this year as well. Bit longer than I wanted, but these things always happen. There's other bits and bobs that I want to do, but I'm undecided yet. Personal projects. Star Wars.
Yes. I love that shuttle you've been working on. So yeah, please make
Yeah.
that available. That would be awesome. I like.
Well, I have been thinking of doing like modular starfighters. Quite simply, cockpit, engine block, body, and wings, so you can swap the
Yeah, and
pieces
then you
out.
can
It's
just
just
sort of
getting
swap
a
pieces
decent,
out.
yeah, it's just getting a decent modular system up and running. But that's one thing I want to do. Some slightly bigger ships, but again, the larger you go with resin, the more restrictive it gets, and the less people want to spend money on it because there are STLs and MDF out there.
Yeah,
And as
well,
we discussed, people play games.
ship shipping has also become horrible. So
Yeah, I mean, I do try and subsidize the shipping, but it's getting ridiculous now.
Yeah.
It's my biggest expense every month, without a doubt.
Yep. Same here too. I mean,
Yeah,
we lose money every time we ship to Australia or to, some of the
yeah,
uh, uh, anywhere in the EU, basically. So I know how you feel, especially with some of the heavier stuff. Like, oh, it's a great place for the screen to fit to freeze up
yeah,
too. Awesome. So, yeah, so I feel your pain on the shipping and everything like that, and people will constantly contact me, and I'm like, I don't have any, I don't have any say in what your government has decided to charge
yeah,
for, import export fees and what
yeah,
shipping costs. That's buy a PDF.
yeah.
Sorry,
I mean,
I don't know what to tell you.
all the postage I do, well, 90% of it is subsidised. Some of the smaller packages in England aren't, but then it's only 50p or something like that. But whenever I buy something, I always think it's going to be between 10 and 20% is going to be on postage anyway. When I go in to
Yeah,
buy, I don't think, oh, postage is too much, I'm not going to buy it. It's
yeah,
always there in the back of my mind because people have to pay postage. It's
yeah.
just one
No,
of
there's
those
a lot.
things.
I can with our store. I can actually see at what point they sort of bail. If we have uh, a failed purchase, and it's always at the shipping page is when they decide, nope, I'm not doing this kind of thing. It never
Yeah,
happens except at that point. So you have
yeah,
to go into it knowing that 20 to 30% of to tack on top of whatever you're buying. So anyway,
yeah,
I
yeah.
I
One of
don't know
those
what to say.
things, unfortunately.
Well, and
Yeah,
you can get into this hobby and be cheap. It's definitely ways you can do it and not spend a lot of money.
yeah,
But there's also a part of it that if you don't want to, you might be in the wrong hobby at the same time. With cost of miniatures and the
yeah,
cost of terrain and stuff like that. So definitely
yeah,
not one of the
yeah,
cheaper hobbies, but it's also not one of the more expensive ones. And you can definitely set. So but if you want to make your tables pop, you need to get something from Oshiro Model Terrain and keep James going. We're hoping to
yeah.
be
Please,
together. We're hoping to be together next year for Salute for hopefully in 2023, and then I'm
and
trying to make it to
beer and
what
cigars and
and beer and
food
cigars. Yes.
and
Well,
food.
that's
Yeah,
for I'm coming out in the fall, so well, that'll if things hold the way they're supposed to. So we're hoping to come out in the fall, maybe again for my
yeah,
birthday. We'll see. And so
yeah.
uh, we'll see how that goes. But James, thanks for thanks for coming on. Talk about your
Yep. Thank you
process.
for having me.
Yeah, and I'll be posting this pretty soon.